let me get my... All right, so hopefully that works now. The mic was not working. OBS recently updated and there are whole sorts of problems. Anyway, you can read through the story if you really want to. Each year there's a different story if you have to help elves or you have to help Santa or something like that. But in any case, let's just jump right immediately to the actual problem here. That you're given a list of strings, an alphanumeric strings here. And then what you have to do is you have to extract the first digit and the last digit. So, and then what you do is you treat that as a number. So, for example, here's the first string, 1 ABC 2. You take the first digit, which is 1, and then the last digit, which is 2, and you've got 12. You do that for the second one, so 3 and 8, and that's 38. 1, 2, 4, and 5 are embedded in that third string right there, but you only take the first one and the last one, and that gives you 15. The last one, there's only one digit there, so that's the first and the last digit. And so what you end up doing is you end up using it both times, 77. Okay? So what you do is you take all of these numbers and then you add them up and you get 142. Now that's just a demonstration. That's basically a test case right there. What you need to do is you need to get your actual puzzle, and I've not yet looked at this yet, but it is much, much, much larger than you can do by hand. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to get started here. I'm going to go ahead and create just a new file for day 01, right? In case we do any more. And note here that when you submit the puzzle, you actually get 2 stars a day. So it can be deceptively simple on the first exercise. And generally, if you do it right, if you write it so that you write it generally, then the second one should be easy. But if you just write it quick and dirty, then you have to go back and the second exercise builds on the first exercise. So if you do the first exercise quick and dirty, then you're going to have to go back and fix the first exercise in order to get the second answer. So what I'm going to immediately anticipate that, and I'm going to write a whole bunch of, as a review, a whole bunch of scaffolding so that we can get some practice and review on this. So first of all, I'm going to include the standard library and the standard input-output library, as well as strings, because I'm going to be working with strings. All right. Oops, H. There we go. Include string.h. Right. And let's go ahead and write some functions that I know that I'll need. For example, there's my input. Right. I'm just going to go ahead and take all that input and put it into a new file here. Right. day01.input.txt. Right. There we go. There's my input. I'm going to put that into a file, and we're going to have to process that file. Note here that I'm just going to hard code it, and knowing that there are 1,000 elements here. Right? But also, I want to make sure that I'm troubleshooting my solutions here. So if I'm going to use this test data right here, I'm also going to want the test data in a file in order to run that as my test case. Right? So day01.test.txt. And we'll go ahead and put the test information into that one. Okay? So the very first thing I know that I want to do is I want to load up that data, right? And if I was thinking smart, I would go back to Hack 10 and simply cut and paste that code, or use that code like you did in Hack 10 in the second exercise to analyze DNA or whatever, DNA to protein. I would actually use that code to load this all up. Let's use this as an opportunity to remind ourselves how that works, though. What I'm going to do is I'm going to return a char star star, a list of get or load strings from file. All right, and we're going to have a const char star file path or file name. Right. Why am I taking this as input? Because I want to switch back and forth. I want to do the test first, and then I want to do the input over here. All right. So I want to give that as part of the input. I'm also going to want to communicate back to the calling function how many I read. Are we doing the test, in which case I read 4 of these things? Or are we doing the actual value, or actual input here, in which case we're doing 1,000 of them? And for that, I'm going to pass a int star num strings. All right, there we go. So this is going to be very, very similar to load up or load file lines or something like that that you did on Hack 10. Okay. First step, what do? I open the file. So file star in is equal to fopen, right? and I'm going to be opening the file name for the purposes of reading. Right? Basic error checking here if you want to. If file name is null or num strings is null, or if after opening it, if in is null, then in any of those cases, the only thing that I can return is null, because something went wrong and I can't return that that array of strings, that array of pointers to arrays of characters. Right? Okay. Don't forget to close your resources. Before I even proceed, I'm going to say, well, I opened up something. So let's go ahead and jump down to the bottom and close it. For close in. Okay? All right, in the interim here, I'm going to read values. So I'm just going to read every single line. Right? But first of all, I need to know how many lines there are, because I'm going to create a character array here that is the results, or the result strings. Right? Result is equal to a call to malloc, right? Size of char star, and how many of them do you want? The most common mistake that we saw here was assuming that you were told how many strings there are or how many lines there are in that file. That's not the purpose of this thing. The purpose of this thing is for me to read all of the read in the file, and then I'll also tell you that, by the way, there were 4 lines that I read, or there were 1,000 lines that I read. Okay? So my first step here is to go through the file once to count up the number of lines. Right? So any suggestions on how to do that? We looked at 2 functions for file input. They were called f file get c and f get s. If I'm doing this line by line by line, which one do I want? I want to get the entire line, which is a string. Okay? So that returns a pointer, a char pointer, right? Line is equal to forgets. And unfortunately, I forgets how to use it. There are 3 arguments there. What are they? Does anybody remember? I don't either. So man pages, man forgets. There it is. So the first one is the buffer that you're reading into, then the size of the buffer, and then the actual input stream that you are reading from. So I also need a buffer here, char buffer, and I don't see any line more than 1,000 characters long here, right? Let's look at the input over here. That looks like the longest line, and I don't know how many characters that is, but all of these are certainly less than, let's just say 1,000. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and read that into the buffer. At most 1,000 minus 1. Remember why? Because it needs to put in that null terminating character. And I'm going to be reading it in from the input file. Okay? Now I go into a while loop. While line is not equal to null, do it again. Except that you can't redeclare the variable, so it'll simply just be line is equal to. Now I need to count the number of lines. So I'm going to go ahead and go with num lines plus plus, meaning that up here I need that variable, int num lines is equal to 0. You started out at 0. Right? I don't know, 1, since we read it up here. I guess, do we start it out at 1? Because if this never, so it will not be null, so that we read the next line, and so okay, yeah. I think that this is correct. We'll know for sure after I debug it and we see 0 or 1,000 or something. We see 1,000 or 999. Okay? That tells me how many lines there are, which is the number of strings that I will want to allocate. So I will set num strings equal to num lines. And I'm going to use num lines right here. Oh, sorry. Num strings is equal to num lines. Now, you might ask yourself, well, why are you using 2 variables to represent the same thing? I'm using 2 variables, but they're completely different types. One of them is a pointer, and one of them is a regular old local variable. I'm going to use that local variable because I am comfortable with going plus plus and using it in an expression here, etc., etc. I'm not too comfortable with using a pointer because I only want to muck with that once. Dereference it over here, so that you can assign it and then just assign it once and forget about it. Because what happens if you do use num strings right here? Right? Well, I need to dereference it, and now I've got to go back to my C book and find out, is that actually correct? Is the dereference operator, does that have a higher order of precedence than the plus plus operator, or is it the other way around? Right? I don't remember, and I don't want to have to remember, so I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm going to mess with pointers once, and that's it. Okay. If you want to, you can go ahead and test it out for now. Printf read how many lines. Actually, let's do it in the main, right? And we'll return result right here. I don't like to write too much code without testing what I've gotten so far. So int main int argc char argv. Right, there we go, and we'll test it by opening up the, load strings, by opening up the test file here. Strings, strs, there we go, is equal to load strings, and then my file is day01.test.txt, and num strings. There we go. So int num strings. Uh-oh, is that passing a regular variable like that? It requires a pointer. So how do I change a regular old variable into a pointer? Ampersand. Excellent. Now let's just make sure that we read the correct number of strings. Printf, there are %d strings. By the way, we're not going for the... this opened at 11 o'clock last night, and I don't know what the leaderboards look like. There we go. 180. Who knows? That means that they got like, what is that? No, that's not 3 minutes. Okay, so whatever the inverse is, they did it in a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes or something like that, right? In order to get to the leaderboards there. Obviously, we're almost 12 hours after that due date, so we're not doing this for speed here. Right? All right, so let's go ahead and make sure that this compiles first of all. GCC G warnings all day01.c. Uh-oh. Did I have a mistake there? Undeclared num strings. Num strings. There we go. Sorry. All right. Now let's run it. Remember, I'm opening up the test file, so I should say 4 strings. Let's change that so that it's the input file. I should read 1,000 strings, and we're all good there. Right? Now we actually need to read them. Right? And if I ran this through Valgrind right now, you would see that I would have a memory leak because nothing is ever done with this thing. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to read the file. Because I went through it once to count up the number of lines, the number of strings, 1,000. Now I need to go back and actually read them in to this array right here. Right? So I could close and reopen if I wanted to, for close, and then for open, etc., etc. What's another way that I could have done this? Right now, my file pointer is pointing to the end of the file. Right? What it's done is it's read every single line, and finally it's pointing at the end of the file. I need to make sure that it's pointing at the beginning of the line or the beginning of the file again. Right? In other words, if it were a bunch of tape, what would I do with it? I would rewind it in. There we go. That takes it all the way back to the beginning. Remember, you also have these other things called seek, and I think that can seek back and forth, right? Or something like that. Anyway, I'm going to rewind it, so now that I'm looking at the beginning of the file. It's going to look almost virtually the same as this right here, but instead of just counting up the number of lines, I'm going to store them in this result right here. Okay? So, line is equal to forgets buffer 1,000, 1,000 and in, and while line is not equal to null, I will go ahead and say results of I is equal to buffer. Is that how we copy strings? That's how we copy integers. That's how we copy doubles. That's how we copy booleans, if you want to use it like that. But is that how we copy strings? Nope. It will work. It'll probably, hopefully there'll be an error here. Or, oh, nope, oh, just a warning, right? So I need actually an error because I need this index variable here, 0. All right, there we go. And then I++. Right. And will there even be a warning now? No, there's not even a warning here. All right. This is perfectly fine because this is a memory address and this is a memory address, an initialized memory address, but you're making it point to something that's local and it's not able to figure out that that's wrong. Right? I haven't even set up memory for this thing yet. If I ran this through a visualization tool, what would it look like? An array of pointers. What are they pointing to? Nothing. Right? I need to make sure that they're pointing to a valid memory location that can hold a string of up to 1,000 characters or whatever it is. I don't need 1,000 characters, though. What do I need? I need malloc. However many characters are in the current line or in the current buffer. strlen buffer. That tells me how many characters are in there. How many bytes does each character take? Size of char. All right. Again, that's going to be 1, but it's best practice to just leave that in there. Am I forgetting something? Well, it's good. It's going to take the entire string here. We're not there yet, right? I'm just reading the input in. Right? So it's going to have the entire string here, including all of the letters and all the numbers and stuff like that. You could arguably, for each one of these, then just solve it directly. But that's going to get us into trouble when we try to solve the second problem, because then we're going to have to go back and fix everything. Right? For example, here, you could have just immediately, if this were your string, this were your line, all you'd have to do is find 5 and 5 from the other direction, and you're done. Right? But I don't want to do that. I want to solve this, and I also want to give more review here and as examples. What am I forgetting here? If this is HELLO on the line, right? Buffer 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. What's at the end with a string? Null terminating character. So what do I need to do? +1. Good math, bad math. Bad math. Even though it turns out to be the same thing, right? You get into a habit of not doing that, though, and we saw in several instances in the memoization recursion from last week that bad math was applied, and then it worked locally, but then it didn't work on code post because there was memory corruption. Right? All right, I've set up enough memory for that line. Now let's go ahead and copy it properly. How do I put the contents of one string into another string? strcpy. Results of I, and line or buffer, either one. I'm still forgetting something. It'll become apparent when... Oh, sorry. I should have rewound when. Up here. There we go. All right, and then ultimately return that thing, and then close it. All right, that's good. There are that many strings. Let's print them out. For int I equals 0, I is less than num strings, I++. Right? Printf, string sub %d is equal to %s and the line. And so I'll print out I and str's sub I. There we go. GCC. Num strings. There we go. Now let's run this. I'm doing the 1000 one. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Two things that are wrong. What am I? What's your guess as to what's going on here? Terminated after a while. I'm probably stuck in an infinite loop. Right? I know that it's not up here because I've already tested that. Right? I didn't write my entire program and then test it and then get lost. I tested this stuff up here, so I'm pretty sure that this stuff up here is correct. What about this stuff right here? Is this stuff correct? What was I doing up here in this loop that I was not doing down here? Going to the next line. All right, there we go. All right, GCC, run it. There we go. Now is it apparent what I was doing, or what I was forgetting? What happens when you read in a string from a file? What's at the end, implicitly at the end of each one of these files? I forget how to make it show it too, but there is a way. I forget. An endline character, right? It's hidden, right? But it's there. And it's being read in, which is why it's double spacing everything. We could chomp it out if you want to. How would you chomp it out? Before you copy it, if, what is it, buffer, sub strlen of buffer, -1, because that is the last one, is equal to the end-line character, then chomp it out. Buffer of the last one is not equal to the end-line character. It is equal to the null terminating character. There we go. Oops. What did I do wrong? Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. All right. There. That got rid of the end-line character. Not the null terminating character, but the end-line character. It's not really going to matter because the end-line character is white space, and so it's never going to be an actual number here. Right? Okay. I am convinced that everything that I've done up to this point is correct. I've successfully read in the file. Right? It only took us 20 minutes. Right? Another way that you could have done this is just to cut and paste it and then put it into the file, right? Directly in the code. For example, what something I would have done is over here. Let's do this. I want all of these to be strings, so find and replace A through Z, A through Z, and 0 through 9. Group that together. This is a regular expression, and then replace that with double quotes, 1, double quotes, comma, end the line. Replace all. Come on. There we go. Oh, ooh, darn it. Oh, sorry. Undo. I meant to do the entire thing and then replace them all. There we go. Ooh, looks like I've got some end line characters in there. All right, I'm not getting them all. Anyway, I would have figured out the correct regular expression to do something like that. Right? I don't think we've talked about regular expressions. They're an extremely powerful tool that once you use them, you'll never remember how to use them off the top of your head, but you'll understand that, wow, that's a useful tool, such a useful tool that I just need to go and remind myself of what I need to do for this one particular operation. And then you can go to things like regx builder online, right? And you can test and debug regular expressions. It basically allows you to write an expression that would match any email, or write an expression that would match anything that looks like a phone number. 3 digits followed by a dash, followed by 3 digits, followed by a dash, followed by 4 digits. Right? And that's what I was trying to do right here. Why is it not working? A through Z, 0 through 9, 0 or more instances, and then, yeah, I'm not sure why it's not working here, but whatever. All right, anyway. Regular expressions, something to take a look at on your own. Right? All right, so at this point, I've got a bunch of strings, and what I need to do now is find the first digit and the last digit. Okay? So let's write functions to do that. Get first digit. Int get first digit of a string const char star s. There we go. Suggestions. What if I have this string right here? How would you go about finding the first digit in that one, for example? 5747. There's only one digit there, 7. How do you find the first one? Character by character by character by character until you find the first digit. Right? That's just a basic idiomatic for loop. For int I equals 0, I is less than strlen of s, right? I plus plus. Right? If s sub I is a digit, then you are done. Immediately return it. Return something something. Right? I probably don't have to worry about anything outside of here, because if it's bad, they're not going to give you bad input. They're not going to give you a string with no digits in it. Okay? So, tell me, how do I solve that first one? How do I detect if it's a digit or not? Is digit. And that's in the what library? The C-type library. So I need to bring that in because I didn't bring that in originally. Include C-type. .h. There you go. All right. And what do I return? what if I just return this? Right? Now, is the digit 7 equivalent to an integer 7? Let's remind ourselves about the ASCII-table.com or whatever it is. Right? And let's zoom in and find the digit 7. Where is it? 7. Does that have a value of 7? Nope. So how could I convert, say, 7 or 55 to 7? How could I convert 48 to 0? How could I convert 53 to 5? Well, how can I convert 57 to 9? What would I have to subtract? No? All right, what about 48? That'll be easier. If I want to translate 48 into 0, what do? Subtract 48. What if you want to translate 49 into 1? What do? You subtract 48. Right? So, subtract 48. Right? That's why the ASCII text table was set up like this, so you could do little tricks like that. If you want to convert, for example, uppercase to lowercase or lowercase to uppercase, what would you do? The difference here between 65 and 97 is 32. Right? In fact, that's just one single bit. And if you ever get into bit twiddling or bit masking, you can do it with an even simpler operation. Right? That's why it was set up like this. Okay, that's the first digit. Ooh, a little bit harder. What about the last digit? So do I start at the beginning, the left side of it? Nope. Where would I start instead? At the end. Right? And while I is greater than or equal to 0, or greater than or equal to 0, now I don't go up, I go down. Right? And if that's a digit, then return it, but subtracted 48. Cool. So for each one of these, and let me undo this now. Right. Actually, if you want to leave this in here, so for debugging purposes, what I'll do is I'll say int x is equal to the first digit of str's sub I. There we go. And y will be the last digit. All right, did I call it get last digit and get first digit? Is that what I call them? Yeah. Get first digit and get last digit. Okay. Now, what do I do with those x's and y's? Let's go back to the problem statement here. What you do with the first digits, for example, 1, ABC, 2, you combine it so that you're basically concatenating them together, 1 and 2, 3 and 8, right? How could I do that with x and y? Can I just do this? Int z is equal to x plus y. 1 and 2. Is that going to give me 12? No, that's going to give me 3. Ideas? Oh, I could go ahead and concatenate it, and then I could use a to I or something like that. But they're already numbers. Right? If you have 1, how do you make it into 10? So that you can add 2 to it. Times 10. Right? All right. Then printf value is, in fact, I'm going to tab over a little bit. Value is %d and the line, and z. There we go. Oops. Get last digit. There we go. All right. Let's run this and see if it works, at least for some of them. So 7, there we go. The first digit is 9. The last digit is 8. The value is 98. The first digit is 7. The last digit is 9. And so I see a value of 79. Cool. Now what I have to do is simply add them all up. What is the sum of all the calibration values? So let's have a grand total here. Int grand total. Starting off at 0. And instead of printing it out, I'll go ahead and say that grand total plus equals z. Right? And then at the very end, printf grand total is equal to %d and the line. And grand total. Now before I submit my solution here, I want to go back to the test data and see if that's correct. Right? Do I at least get the correct value out of those 4? I have 142, and it says that it is indeed 142. Because if I submit this and I'm wrong, it'll actually throttle me, and I won't be able to make another submission for like a minute or 2 minutes or something like that. And so you've got to be, if you want to make that leaderboard, you've got to be absolutely correct. So input. There we go. And let's run it. Okay. Small enough that I'm pretty sure that there's no overflow. In fact, there were 1,000 with a value, 1,000 lines with a maximum value of 99 because there are only 2 digits, and so that's well within 2.147 billion. All right, there's my solution. You may or may not get the same input values, by the way. Right, it might be auto-generated for each user, but I'm not sure. All right, cross your fingers with me. And yay, I got a gold star. That was the correct solution. Continue to part 2. If we did it well, we did not program ourselves into a corner, right? Like painting ourselves into a corner. If we did it well, then this should be just a slight tweak to that solution. Right? Your calculation isn't quite right. It looks like some of the digits are actually spelled out with letters. Ah, crap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 also count as valid digits. Equipped with this new information, you now need to find the real first and last digit on each line. For example, 2, 1, 9. That means that we would have 2 and 9, right? And giving us 29, 83, 13, etc., etc. Well, it was kind of okay because I at least have these 2 functions. All I need to do is change these 2 functions. I'm still reading in the same exact input, and all the logic down here in the main of getting the first digit and getting the last digit as values, right? Because I put those into functions, all I need to do is worry about those 2 functions, right? So we didn't do too badly, right? By the way, the input does not change, right? But this example input does change. So let me go ahead and grab that and add a new file, day01.test2.txt, all right? And put in that value. Remember that we're going to be looking for a value of 281 out of this, right? Okay. In fact, I don't even need to change much in this function. If it's a digit or if it's a value that represents a digit, O-N-E, T-W-O, etc., 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 right? Yeah. Actually, I do, because I'm looking at these character by character by character, right? All right. Let's just look at the input here. So it's not purely letters and numbers. Or what I mean is it's not purely like 6, 3, 5. That would be pure, right? That's 6, 3, and 5. Those are all representatives of numbers. But we also have this, N, N, G, or J, G, N, E, right? So we can't rely on any fact that, it's a pure 5, 6, and numbers 5 and 6. There's some nonsense in there, okay? Okay. What I'm going to do is let's tackle this first one first. I'm still going to go character by character here. And if that character is indeed a digit, then I'm done. But what if it's the beginning of, what if it's like, say, 5? And by the way, all these look like they're lowercase, so I don't need to worry about uppercase, lowercase. Right? So what if instead it's 5? Right? So, or strcmp, strncmp. I'm just going to do one example here of s of I and 1 and 3. All right. Tell me what I'm doing here. I don't want a period. What am I doing here with that check right there? Or what am I trying to do? I'm trying to look at the string that starts at index I, and I'm trying to compare it to 1. But remember that it might have a bunch of other nonsense after it. So if I just use strcmp, right? Then it's not going to come back as a match. But if I limit it to strncmp and use 3 here, it will come back as a match of ONE, 1. Right? There is one problem here, though. This is required to be a string. Is that a string? No, what is that? Character. So how do I take a character and change it into a string, str, char star, excuse me. How do I take a regular old variable and change it into a pointer? Ampersand. Right. There we go. Or, and there was no zeros, were there? I don't know. Let's check. Fine, 0. Okay, nope, there's no 0 in there. So we only have to worry about 1, 2, 3, 4, ... right? So strncmp, okay. Or, cut, paste, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's one too many. There. Now what do I have to do? Go through and change each one from 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. And 3, 3, 5, 4, 4, 3 is okay. That's 7 characters. That's, that's 7 characters. That's 5 characters. And then finally 4 characters. All good so far, right? Except that, is it going to give, what's going to happen here? If it matches 1, this is going to end up being O, lowercase o. Lowercase o is where? Is 111, right? If I just subtract 48 from that, what's going to happen? It's going to be some nonsense value. It's not going to be 1, which is what I want. Okay? So how could I restructure this, I don't know, this logic? No? I'm going to change it instead of just a bunch of ors here. I'm going to put it, this is really probably bad, but it's quick and dirty. If it's a digit, I'll go ahead and do that. Otherwise, else if it matches 3, then I will return what? Or if it matches 1, O-N-E, what will I return? 1. Right? Else if str, if there's a better, if this were a more sophisticated language like say Python, I would probably, or more expressive language I should say, like Python, I would put this into what's called a map. Right? But we don't have that luxury here. 2, else if that matches, then I will return 3. Right? Are we all good so far? Tell me if tell me if I get anything wrong. Else if by cutting and pasting, right? Yeah, I'm missing parentheses, aren't I? Parenthesis. There we go. At this point, I'm going to just cut and paste everything from here to here. And there we go. 3, 4, 5, 6. This is really, really bad, by the way. I would, if I weren't so pressed for time, I would come up with a much, much better solution here. 6, 7, 8, and 9. Else who? What happens? I don't know. If anything should happen, let's go ahead and print an error message. Error. Right. There. And I've only done the first digit. Let's come down here and let's see. Let's restore this value here. Right? Values, and we'll do all 3: x, y, and Z. Let's just make sure that this works, at least partially. All right. Oops, darn it, what did I do wrong? All right, if it's digit, else if, that looks good. It's by 5, where is it? Else if, oh no, did I get all that wrong? If, there we go, if, this is why you don't cut and paste. There we go, I got it, all right. So let's make sure that this works. So there's 7, good. There, 5, uh-oh. 5, why is it giving me 1? Anyone? 3, 3, 5, 4, 4, 3, 5, 5, 4. Oh. What does strcmp return? Something negative, positive, or 0, depending on the relative ordering of those things. So if it's a match, what should I be checking for? 0. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0. There we go. Okay. We are getting errors. All right. Why are we getting an error right here? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5. Well, here, let's try some others. Oh, 7 works. So I'm on the right track there. There's 7. 5 works, of course, if it's a digit. A whole bunch of errors there. Well, that's 4. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't be printing anything, right? Because, of course, I could go on to the others. So that's a red herring there. Let's try that again. All right, so 5. Is that correct? Yep. 7. Is that correct? Yep. 7, 5, 4. Okay. 7, 4. All right, I'm somewhat convinced that it's correct now, at least on the first digit. Good. All right. Oh, say what? Well, yeah, I haven't done the, I only did the first digit. So now what do I have to do? The last digit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut and paste this entire thing and replace this with get last digit. And like before, I'm going to start at I equals strlen minus 1. I is greater than or equal to 0 because I don't want to fall off. I plus plus. Is this going to get me into any trouble? No, it's not, because when I try to, if I'm looking at one character and I'm comparing it to 3 characters, obviously it's going to come back with no, that's not a match, because what's after this one character here? The null terminating character. So it's always safe to do this. Last digit, so GCC. Let's run this again. Oh, you know what? That's not correct. So 5 is correct, but 6 is... That's 7. This should be 6. That's correct. Why is this one not correct? S. Oh, duh. What do I do if I want to work down? There we go. I'm amazed I wasn't getting a seg fault out of that, but whatever. There we go. All right, so 7, 8. That looks good. 5 on the end there, and what's the first digit? 4. 7, and then whatever. All right, I'm confident enough now to, with only 7 minutes left, let's go ahead and test it on test 2. There we go. GCC, run it. 281, is that correct? Does anybody remember what it was? Oh, hey, cool. All right. Now, let's do it on the actual input. And this time around, I'm going to cross both of my fingers because this is going to be even worse, right? So 53, copy that. There we go. And I can't, okay, there we go. All right. Hey, all right. I got my gold star. I got both of my gold stars today, right? So advent of code, go back here. it's eventually going to make some sort of a picture. For example, the first one in 2015, it was a nice little Christmas tree, yay, right? Anyway, to go back to the solutions here. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question for the last one, the last digit.
Okay.
How, if you're on the very last, you start I at the very last.
Right.
Digit.
So on this one, for example,
how does it calculate one if it's going backwards? Like how does it read string A?
so it's starting at this character, then going to that character, then going to that character, then going to that character. So if that single character is a digit, we stop immediately. For example, like 6 here, and we end up returning 6 as the as the value, because we're returning immediately, right? But if, let's look at another example here, 4, right? So it starts out at R. None of these are going to match, right? Because it's not equal to 1 O-N-E. It's not equal to T-W-O. It's not equal to T-H-R-E-E, right? Only when it gets to not that one, not that one, not that one, but when it gets to this one, oops, I only want one highlighted there, right? Once it gets to the first letter of one of these words right here, does it then, oh, these four characters match here because strncpy is only comparing 4 characters. It's saying that those are equal, and so it ends up returning 4. Right? This is actually harder than day 1 usually is, right? But I don't know. Anybody suggest a better solution than this big giant else if statement? Anytime you see something like this, that should be red flags immediately, right? C, it's not so easy, but if this were another programming language, what I would do is something called a map. What I would do is I'd say, like if this were Python, in fact, let's go over here and let's create a new Python file, foo.py, right? What I would do is I would create what's called a map. So str map, right, is equal to, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to map 1 to the value 1. I'm going to map TWO to the value 2. I'm going to map 3 to 3, right? And I wouldn't have had that big giant if-else if statement. All I would need to do is use str map of the string, and if that's in fact not null or not none or something like that, then I would return str map str. There we go. Right. And I wouldn't have to have that big giant if else if else if else if else. Right. This would have been typically the advent of code has a bias towards Python, in that they'll give exercises where if you're using Python, things become a lot easier. For example, this entire load strings method, that would probably be a 1 line of code in Python. Why? Because it's just built into the language. Of course, once you write this, like you did in Hack 10, then it's built into the language, right? That's all that they're doing, right? All right. Any questions? We can't go to day 2. We can go back to the very beginning, though. If you want to do day 1 of 2000, I think we saw this before, right? And this one has a real easy solution because you can just use a character counter. Right? You don't even have to program anything. Right. All right, so on Monday, we can do another Advent of Code, but I want to dedicate at least 2 of those days, so probably Wednesday and Friday, to old exams instead of just Advent of Code. Right? But try it out. Did anybody do Advent of Code today already and got a solution? No? All right. I encourage you to. And over the break, if you're so bold, want to learn Java or get a head start on Java if you're taking CS2, or you want to learn Python or something like that, then Advent of Code is an excellent way to do that, because once you solve it in one language, you've got the idea solved. You just have to take that over and put it into another language. Right? But there you go. Day 1 done.